Do I have to stand somewhere?
That would be fine.
This would be fine?
Yeah. You could go that way. You can go wherever you want. I'll follow.
We're small, but we're mighty. And what's unfortunate is most of you already know the answers to all the questions I'm going to pose. But that's okay. We want to make available to people an understanding about what we've done in our reorganization and how you, as members of this congregation, can work within the new structure to get your ideas, your thoughts, your prayers heard and considered. And so we've asked the board chairs to join us, and most of them are here, but not all. And I want to lead off by saying a couple of things. How many of you grew up in a congregation that had more than 300 people attending church on Sunday? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So the rest of you grew up in congregations that had less than 300 people attending a church on Sunday. And how those congregations work. Huh?
I said, we can't fool you.
No, I went to General Seminary, you know that. How those congregations work are quite different. In a congregation where the average Sunday attendance, anybody know what the average Sunday attendance is in an Episcopal church in the United States of America?
70.
What he said. Say it again.
70.
70.
Lucky guess.
And I told him this 3 or 4 times.
Oh, planted.
Yeah, so most people come from churches that are small. And in small churches, the great advantage is everybody knows everybody. And so people know how to get stuff done. And the way the Episcopal Church works is in those kinds of churches. Power resides in a functional church. Power resides in the relationship between the rector and the vestry. So if you want to get something done in the church and you're new and you say, I think that we ought to be doing a food drive for the homeless people in our town. You say, can I come to the vestry? Well, you may talk to the rector first and ask the rector, can I come to the vestry? And that duet makes the decisions. As churches grow, it's not possible to know everybody. And so what happens is the system needs to change, and that's what we've been working on for the last 18 months. What we did was we created a distinction between the work of the vestry and then created 5 ministry boards so that the work of the 5 ministry boards is different from the work of the vestry. Okay? What's the difference? The difference is the vestry's job is to look forward. It's the vestry's function to plan for the future. So they're in charge of our strategic plan. And they're in charge of implementing that. They're in charge of saying, what do we need 3 to 5 years from now so that we can continue to grow and be excellent at what we do? The boards were created because they have their jurisdiction, their function, is to look at the present, not at the future. And the radical change, and I mean radical, the radical change is the boards have power over all the ministries. Now, I've done this in bunches of congregations around the Episcopal Church. And my learning is it takes 3 to 5 years before the boards believe they have the power. Okay? And the reason for that is vestries. It takes 3 to 5 years for the vestries to learn to butt out and not get involved in that. Someone came to me the other day with a concern they had. And they said, I'd like to bring this to the vestry. And it was a concern about something happening in one of the boards. And it was a vestry person that brought that. And I said, no. This discussion belongs with the people who have the power to make the decision, which is not the vestry. The vestry does not have the power any longer to make those decisions about the ongoing life of the congregation. Okay? So, for example, if we decided that we wanted to change our liturgical colors here from what we now have, which are the Latin colors, green, white, purple, and red, okay? And say we wanted to go to the Sarum colors. For those of you who don't know what Sarum is, it was the way the colors used in Winchester Cathedral in England in the 600s. And they're very popular with Anglican stuff because it's further back in our heritage than the Roman colors. That decision would not be made by the vestry. That decision would be made by the liturgy board because they have jurisdiction of the liturgy. And leading that charge would be probably the ultimate because they have to take care of all of that. So they would be consulted, and if they didn't want to do it, that's probably as far as it is yet. Okay? If they were interested in hearing what everybody else thought, they'd have a conversation. If the conversation was, no, we're sticking with these colors because a set of vestments cost about $15,000 and we don't have that kind of money, then they could be no. Or they could say yes and go to the Finance and Facilities Board and say, we need, because of the 6 Sarum colors, we need $90,000 for new altar vestments. And the Finance and Facility Board has the ability to say yes or no based on what makes sense in terms of the money. So that's kind of how it works. Sometimes things work across the boards. It takes more than one board to do the thing. Okay? The other thing that happens is people in the congregation get confused. Well, who's in charge? They love it when the rector's in charge, because then they know who to hate. Okay? Or who to blame, or who to yell at, or who to whatever. And if it's not, if they get a problem with the rector and that's not going very well, then they go to the vestry in hopes that the vestry will yell at the rector. That's the way it works. And that's the definition of a dysfunctional congregation. When there's a wedge between the rector and the vestry, then stuff, not good stuff happens. It's kind of how it works. So moving all of that over to the boards requires a couple of things. Number one, it requires that the vestry and the rector do not ever give the impression to the board that they don't have the power to make the decision. Because we're knee-jerk trained that the rector and the vestry have the power. Okay? The example I give you from my own congregation in Cincinnati was we had an outreach group, and the outreach group had a special budget. They had $75,000 that we raised from a capital campaign, and they said, we said, go ahead, you spend it. Okay, well, they had the power to make the decision of how to spend it. So and part of the way we did our internal controls was no expense could go out of the place without my signature. I didn't sign the check, but I had to approve the expenditure that it was consistent with what we're doing in the congregation. So this thing comes across my desk. The outreach committee wants to give $25,000, okay, 1/3 of their money to this group. Well, I know this group, and I don't like this group. I really don't like this group because I thought they were bumbling in what they did, and it was terrible. And so I went to the chair of the outreach board. It would be like my going to Lynn, who's chair of the outreach board, and I said, can I come and talk to the outreach board about this expenditure? And Linda said to me, his name was Tom. Linda's name was Tom. Tom said to me, do we or do we not have the power to make that decision? I said, yeah, you have the power. Can't we talk? He said, no, we can't talk. We've made a decision. So either sign the check or I quit. I didn't sign the check, but I signed the approval because I figured it was more important to help the outreach board believe that they had the power to do this than it was how that $25,000 ended up. Now, the moral of the story is that went on to become what is today their most significant ministry. Because they invested the money, they also invested people, they changed the board around. And so I was wrong. They were right. Because rector-centered ministry is limited to the brilliance of the rector. And I've never yet met a brilliant rector. Okay? There's power in the group having a conversation about it. Okay? So that's an example of why you want to reinforce the idea that when a board makes a decision, they're good people, and so how's the board made up? Well, the board is made up of people who have ministries within that board. The easiest one to describe is the liturgy board, of which Ricky's is chair. Okay? You name for me people who work on our liturgy. Altogether. Flower Guild.
Ushers.
Ushers.
Greeters.
Greeters. Choir.
Acolytes.
Acolytes.
Schedulers.
Schedulers. DM. Lebs. Lebs. Okay? And you forgot a big one. I'm so disappointed. The clergy. We're not going away, we're just, backing off a little here. Now, the liturgy board is a little more complicated because according to the canons of the church, the chief liturgical officer of the church is the rector. So the liturgy board does not have the ultimate power canonically. So what the liturgy board does is make recommendations and whatever. I will tell you that TJ and I are clear about this. If the liturgy board makes a recommendation and we say no, we better have a damn good reason. Because we don't want to give the liturgy board the impression they don't have the power to make the decision. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Are there any questions so far? Yes.
The overall question, how do the boards talk to each other? Because that seems to be a problem sometimes.
It is a problem sometimes. And as I've said, as we moved into this system, it's going to take probably 3 years before we'll be out of the messy season. We're in the messy season because we're learning what we need to do. When I first started this work and did churches, every board had a chair, but it didn't have a communicator. And it became clear that the communicator's function needed to exist in each board so that the communicators would talk to each other. That's one way that they can talk to each other. That is still not solidified here, and so there are things that are falling through the cracks. That's just has happened. An example of that is my understanding that we agreed that all the board chairs would be here today, and they're not. And all the communicators would be here today, and they're not. So that communication was ineffective, okay? But so here's a learning, redundant systems of communication are necessary. We need to find more than one level. Yes?
Well, we did have a meeting, all of the communicators and board chairs, about what? April.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
We did have a meeting in April with all of the board chairs and communicators, and it was very, very positive and eye-opening because we realized that we were facing a lot of the same problems and issues, and we're going to do it again quarterly. I think Carol and Sarah organized the first one. I think they're going to continue to do that, right? So we are trying to coordinate all of the chairs and coordinators, and we realize that that's an issue.
Yes.
I just have a suggestion. Since communication is an issue with the boards, I don't know how appropriate it would be, but perhaps at either the first Sunday or the second Sunday of the previous month, at the announcement time, have one of the board chairs come up and just sort of give a summary of what's been happening the previous month within the boards. That gets it out to the congregation. Not everybody may go to the website to read the minutes. It's just a suggestion for greater communication.
That's a good suggestion that needs to be considered. I've been thinking about, since the finance function is a little different because it mostly deals with finances and whatever, that the other four boards, that we ought to redo the way we do our Sunday bulletin and have one folded over like we do, and one side each week for the boards to communicate what they're doing. Now and both could happen. I mean, that's not to say one or the other, but we have to see what the communicators want to do and how well they can do it and things like that. But yeah, that is happening. Yeah, Paul.
Would you please explain, we've had 5 boards.
Yes.
But on Dustry, we only have 4 strategy teams.
Correct.
Why not 5? Would you explain that, please?
Sure, because the strategies have nothing to do with the ministries. The strategies are picking the way forward, okay? There are whole bunches of ministries, most of the ministries, do not rise to the level of a strategic choice. So, I mean, we could say, well, we've got 39 lay leaders, why don't we have 39 strategies? You know, the answer is the strategies are what the vestry looking to the future says, this is what we need to work on. And they're big philosophical and visionary kinds of thoughts. Once a strategy starts to get implemented, it goes to the board. The perfect example of that, we'll hear about that in a minute, is the faith formation group. Because there's a faith formation strategy, which said it has 2 things in front of it. One, renewal works in that survey that you took, and the other was to understand how we feel as a congregation for the future in terms of the fact that we are an aging congregation and we don't have a lot of young people. And so the question is, what is the strategy you want to take to deal with that, if any? Okay? So that's the only one that there's correspondence with. Okay? The boards deal with every ministry that occurs. Let's put it a different way. If we all decided that we really needed a ministry to one-armed Puerto Ricans, the first question would be, well, which board gets that? And the answer probably would be outreach. And then the next thing would be good outreach and say, we think there ought to be a ministry to one-armed Puerto Ricans. And if outreach then agrees as a board, that's what they want to do, then they have to find someone who leads that. Probably would be the person whose idea it was, you know, and whatever, but whoever. And then it comes into being and has a seat then on the outreach board. Every lay-led ministry has a chair at some table. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. Questions? Yes?
Is there some probability that if we find a rector who has some sort of experience in a program church, that he will or she will recognize the structure that we're putting into place?
Yes.
Is that what we have?
Yes.
Is fairly typical?
Yeah, and parenthetically, the discernment committee has been working on that question and saying, what kind of a rector do we need? What skills in the new rector are we looking for that would run this kind of a program? Will the new rector change it? I hope so. Because we're all different people, you know, and so things will evolve and change as they go. When I left the congregation that I left in 2001, there was a rector there for 10 years. He changed it. He left. There's a new rector there, and he's changing it again. Great.
Well, it should evolve. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. We're a living, dynamic organization. Things are going to change. Okay? So if there are no more questions, let's start hearing from the board chairs that are here and ask them to talk about their board and kind of what's on their plate right at the moment. Okay?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Faith formation is not Sunday school. Faith formation has nothing to do with sitting quietly. That's the last thing it has to do with. Sitting quietly and being talked at. Faith formation is, and I will say, I'm not altogether happy with the term formation, because that suggests early work. And look at us. Our early work is long gone. But we are still forming who we will be on the day we die. And we're not there yet. So we are still in formation. Part of what faith formation does involves, we have at this point 3 classes. The traditional Wednesday Bible, which is not traditional in the way it was when Barry Kugler was here. It is what is called a historical critical. It's the thinking person's Bible study. And everybody talks. It's over the course of the past, 5 years. We started with Genesis. We are finishing, we made it all the way through the Gospels. It's been, whoa, this is what it says in the Bible. I never knew this was in the Bible. I didn't know that's where it's a work in progress. Lo Davis has begun Bible 101 for people who aren't yet ready for historical critical. They're still looking at the basic content of the Bible and how do you approach it. And again, lively discussion and questions, and there are no questions that cannot be asked. So that leads us then to Seekers. Seekers is a group for, actually for anybody, but it's particularly really a haven for people who have always felt, as May Moore said, I've always felt like the Lone Ranger. There was I was out there all by myself. I had all these questions and nobody to talk to. Seekers looks at faith and says, I can't believe that. Can I still be a Christian? And the conversation has been going now for 7 years, and we have not yet found a person we suggested might want to go someplace else. And there are still people who say, I don't care if there's only 2 people, I need this group. Other than those classes, what we've done lately, as you know perfectly well, we have invited the Reverend Dr. Bruce Chilton to come, and oh my goodness, gosh, golly, give us a dose of what real Christian scholarship can do for us. New ideas, different ways of thinking about ideas, different ways of thinking about the Lord's Prayer. We have got, according to the book sales, more than 40 people reading a book they would never have picked up if that hadn't happened. This is all faith formation. And it's just one of the kinds of things coming up. This is so cool. Coming up on the solstice, Debbie Evans and Deacon Sally are preparing a solstice program at the Labyrinth that will be in the evening, as all good solstice programs should be. I declined to agree to painting my body blue, but if it were a few years back, I might have. But it's tying in with the concert at Franklin Square. And people can, when the concert is over, they can come here. There will be music, there will be healers, there will be who knows what. And we can walk the labyrinth on Midsummer Night and see what happens. It's a different kind of spirituality. I hope that as time goes on, we can do some retreats. I hope we can do more with meditation and different types of prayer. There is so much that, as Carl Jung maintained, the real spiritual work of a lifetime happens after 50. And it is shameful when churches allow discussion of spirituality to be focused only with little people and not with the people who are looking towards their end-of-life issues, their what do I do now issues. Is it really safe to die? All these issues also. Who am I now that I'm not who I was? These are spiritual issues. And that's what we do in faith formation.
Stay tuned because 2 weeks from today, Faith Formation will be back with the results of the Renewal Work Survey and also what actions we're taking from there. Ricky.
Thank you. I was going to move where Camp was. Right here. I'm Ricky Evans. Know most of you, your worship board chair. Most of you, or you're probably most familiar with this board as any of our 5 boards, because we've sort of been around for a lot of years. I've been involved with the worship for some years, and in years past, we would meet probably twice a year in the spring and the fall to kind of look at what we would do in the services and things. But now luckily we get the opportunity to do that once a month. Our main goal as your ministry board is to help make the worship experience more meaningful for all of us and to also facilitate the smooth flow of our services. And how do we do that? We do that with a bunch of great people leading our different ministries. Alder Gill, Janet Wester leads a group that prepares to altar each week for all our services. Flower Gill. When I walked in here this morning, I almost turned around. I thought I was in my grandmother's flower garden for a few minutes. Is that not beautiful? That is, we have got the greatest flower guild in the world, I think. Ushers and greeters. Gene Myers leads a group to help welcome and guide us all in all our services. Acolytes, Miss Erin Hughes helps guide our young people. LEM, LEB, lay readers, our clergy, Father TJ, helps lead that effort. Beach Ministry, Peter Del Sol, he's been involved in that for quite a few years, and he has recently stepped up and is leading that effort. Choir, I miss our choir already, and it's only been 2 Sundays, but Debbie Skillman leads our talented choir group. And then our schedulers, Deborah Alt and Bobby Fuchs, kind of help tie a lot of that together. So, and they do a good job, and that is a very hard job. Your worship board, like I said, now meets once a month, and we're pretty much usually looking ahead at our calendar, looking at upcoming worship and things that we need to coordinate together. Most recently, you all know we where we got a subcommittee under our committee. We asked Tommy Harrelson and Chuck Pollock led a group that put on our wonderful 250th celebration. And that was a subcommittee kind of under worship that we work with. Some things we're, looking at for the future. Real soon, you're probably going to be seeing some information about a ministry fair. We want to find ways of getting our different ministries information out to you, so hopefully we can get more of you involved. Another thing in the future, we may be talking about the possibility of adding another service in the future, more contemporary service or on different days, but that's something that's coming down the road. I think that's about all I had. You guys with Ken and Jim did a lot of what I had anyway. But anyway, if there's any of you that would interested in being on one of our ministry boards, please contact myself, any of our leaders, or the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Gene, just to answer your question a little further that you asked before, if you take the Chilton visit and the 250th anniversary, that required communication across a number of boards. And the boards had to work cooperatively together and did. And particularly, since they were not the lead but were the helper boards, was Parish Life, because they ended up having a role in both of those celebrations. And an example of, it is the messy season, but every once in a while we get one right, and I think both of those are an example of getting it right. So,
Thank you for that.
that's okay. Sarah.
My name is Sarah Pettis, and I'm the chair for the Parish Life Board, and Carol Parnell is really the worker behind all of this secret here. She's my communicator, for all of us. There are 12 people who meet once a month. We have had one electronic meeting, and we'll probably have another one where people join in just through emails and bring their issues or what they're doing, reports to us electronically because of vacations and people traveling. We found that worked really well, and we were able to stay in touch. What we do, we have, I'll just read off my little laundry list that I go through every month with everyone. Some are new, some have been in existence a long time, and I just ask for a report every month, and people are growing and doing and expanding and doing some wonderful work. For example, Daughters of the King. It's a quiet group, it's contemplative, it's meant for prayer and service. We don't do fundraisers, but that's a powerful vehicle for the spiritual life and growth in the ministry of this parish. ECW has done a big revolution, I would say, and changed from a women's group here in Southport to be part of the larger Episcopal group of Episcopal women, and have done some really wonderful things, including starting to bring forward some ideas about where we could put our energies to help those in our community, those who are not as well connected, those who have some issues, things that we could reach out and help. They're there, they're becoming more and more evident, and so we want to honor that work. The senior ministry, this is one that just came out of one of our newer parishioners. When we started the board, I know Michelle Barkowitz from choir, and I said, would you like to come and join the board, and your husband? And immediately they jumped in, been here less than a year. One of the things that Ray put together was a trifold bulletin that you'll see out in the north. That's for new members to look at. It's basically a handheld of what's on our website, so it's information, and people could look at it and fill it out. Please tell us about yourself, give us some more information. So when this comes forward into the office, if people hand it to an usher or put it in the offering plate, then it comes to the office, and there's follow-up with that. So we developed a little algorithm from the time a person enters our door for the very first time. How can we help assist that person to become a full functioning member if they would like to be. So that's part of our parish life, to grow some new people. The other thing, Michelle, as a physical therapist, decided that because of our aging population, there might be a need in our community, so she started an equipment library. So now we have about 35 pieces of equipment. People have them in their own homes, so a walker, a rollator, a wheelchair, a shower bench, those types of things. And already parishioners are contacting her saying, I have to have knee surgery, I could use da-da-da-da-da. So those are just a lending library and just a nice way to support people as they're going through life events. And goodness, every time I talk with somebody, they're getting a new part. So that I think is an important thing, is to realize that we can help people in that. The hospitality is a huge one. The coffee hours are a visible part of that every Sunday. Foods, offerings, refreshments for any of the gather-ups that we have here, for the lectures that Bruce Chilton brought to us, the lunches there, the food for the 250th birthday celebration, in coordination with the ministry board. We didn't do it all, but all of those are things where we can jump in and be helpful to other parts of our ministry. In the fall, there will be a couple other events that we'll host across the street for all parish meetings. So getting those organized. Stephen Ministry is a big one, and that has already grown by about another third with new people involved. That's again, a quieter work that's out there in our community to help support people who have needs in our parish or outside of our parish, actually, people who need a counselor or someone that comes and ministers to them. So that's ongoing. Susan Chase is the lead person on that one. Bereavement, that's a new one that TJ and Janet Fox started this last fall, and they've run, I think, 2 full cycles and have a third one starting this fall again. And that's been very well received and attended, and there is a need for that. And that's, again, open to more than just parishioners. It's open to the community, somebody who has lost a loved one, and that's an important part of ministry to them. Part of the vestry's request to us was the idea of going forward. What are the ministries? What are the growth? What are the things that we could do? So we're working on that, and how can we best reach more parishioners, more people who are looking to become parishioners, who want to get involved, but they maybe don't know that they want to get involved yet. So we want to nudge them in that direction. It is a parish for the people, so we want all the people to be involved. So, any questions?
I'm Linda Humphreys. I'm the chairman of the Outreach Board. And I think probably many of you heard last week that it was the 50th anniversary of Robert Kennedy's assassination. And his daughter was on television, and one of the things that she said was that his legacy was he believed that everybody can make a difference. Well, so do we on the Outreach Board. And that is one of the things that we are constantly thinking about as we work. And also we keep in mind what the Bible tells us, is that God loves us, and He loves everyone. And so as we continue our work, we keep those 2 things in mind. And Nan, I'm so impressed you didn't have to have notes. Deacon Sally very succinctly last week kind of gave you a preview of the Outreach Board. I got the message from the vestry person this week, thank you, Kim and Jim. I know that it sparked some controversy. I welcome that, because we on the outreach board need to hear from you. Any of the new ministries, anything that is going to happen has to come from you. And I'll talk about a little later about how we want to handle that, but I think I've handled the emails that I've gotten so far, and I'll talk about that a little later. But now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we are doing. Our mission is, first of all, we are in charge of all of the ministries. That means that any requests for grants or funding come through us. We're funded by the ECW, the Men's Club. Thank you for the lobster pig, Paul Miller. The operating budget and the mission fund. We also, another one of the jobs that we're working on is to look at the needs of our community with the guidance of Bishop Skirving and to help make an impact on our community that's sustainable. Not just one and done, but something an impact. I am so excited about the new parish hall because that opens new possibilities for all of us, but particularly in outreach, because a new meeting space, a place for self-help groups. Maybe we could have a boys and girls club there, who knows? So, as Canon Jim says, put your whole self in. You can even get a brick with your name on it. I mean, come on, it would be wonderful. Anyway, we meet the second Monday of the month, 2 o'clock. You are all more than welcome. Ideas are welcome. We have representatives from the Men's Club, from ECW, which is interesting because Sarah mentioned that, and this is something I want to talk about. ECW has a voting membership on outreach, but they also go to parish life because they want to have at least some contact and information and input into parish life. But they only have one vote, one board. We have Bundles of Joy, Street Reach, Food Pantry, the Blood Bank, the Episcopal Relief and Development, Carillon, Mission Fund, Southport Oak Island Interfaith Fellowship, and the Opioid Task Force. At each meeting, we hear from each one of those ministries. It may be a sentence, it may be an extensive discussion, but we hear from each one of those ministries. And then we hear grant requests. It can be brought by someone from the congregation. It can be brought by someone from the board. Some of the ministries that we've supported this year are the Martin Luther King Breakfast, Bundles of Joy you all know about, but I have to tell you, once a month there are many of us who take diapers to a ministry. We happen to do love ministry, and I love to do it because when we walk in there, they're so grateful for those diapers for the little babies. Belize Ministry, you know, you fill the suitcase. We've helped them send choir robes. Shirley is so appreciative, and again, she's joined our meetings to share with us what's happening there. We do Monday lunches, prayer benches out in the Labyrinth. That was an Eagle Scout project. Again, a wonderful opportunity. Food bank, food pantry, we do grants. You know, the first Sunday of every month, you help support them. We support them in a myriad of ways. Southport Oak Island Interfaith Fellowship, Street Reach, Virginia Williamson Elementary School Backpacks. I think I see Carolyn here. Wonderful project. Many of you helped with that, which is what we want. We need you to be involved. That's the only way this works. New Hope Clinic, Blood Bank, Angel Tree, which is a prison ministry that Pat Bender runs in December, and of course the Winter Shelter Program that was so successful in January. And then we continue working on prioritization of new ministries and ways to help you find what's important to you. Oh, is this process messy? And it's hard. I thought, okay, I'm a school teacher, I got this. I'm going to set up a grid, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Oh, no, 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 no. It was very hard work. It continues to be hard work. We started out with kind of a discussion of the needs of our community. What do we need? Where can we make an impact? What are the differences? And again, the diocese gave us some guidance in this. To help, Deacon Sally came back from a conference, and again, this came from the bishop, suggested that we read something called the Social Justice Bible. It has 40 days worth of reading. We've been reading it as a group. We've been kind of struggling through it because it is very thought-provoking. There is a Bible passage, a reflection, and then the questions that you have to think about. And finally, a prayer. There are 2 copies up in the library. I would encourage you to read them. They really have helped us raise our own awareness of what God wants us to do, what social justice means. From there, we narrowed it down to 4 kind of big groups. And you've heard about these: homelessness, human trafficking, immigration, the migrant farm workers, and addiction and opioid abuse. After we narrowed it down, we thought, okay, we need to be educated. Not just you, but us too. So 4 of us wrote articles on each area, and they were published in the Sunday bulletins, and they're on the website, the goal was for all of us to understand a little more about the problem. This is where I've gotten some feedback, particularly on immigration. I've answered the emails. We will be discussing this in our board meeting on Tuesday, but I welcome your feedback. We want your feedback, because from you, this is going to happen. We can give you ideas, we can do whatever, but these new ministries really have to come from you. As Sarah said, someone was interested in something and a new ministry. Maybe one armed Puerto Ricans, maybe somebody is interested in that, who knows? We'll see as we work through this. The second thing for education was speakers. And I hope some of you were able to come on May 17th when we had the Face of the Homeless. Wonderful, exciting, energetic evening. Oh my goodness. I still am excited to think about it. We had panelists from Habitat for Humanity, Brunswick Housing Opportunities, Street Reach, and WARM, which is Wilmington Area Rebuilding Ministries. They gave wonderful presentations. There were people from all over this county. I really, really would encourage you, if you didn't get there, to look on the website and listen to it. It was exciting. And I hope that you will look forward to more of these. We will be presenting more speakers in the fall on each of the topics. Please make sure you come, because it is a way not only for you to be educated, but for you to be excited, for you to maybe find your passion. And then the next step, the next step. That's what we're working on right now. What do we do? How do we find out what you're interested in? Well, first of all, maybe we need to narrow it from 4 to 2 areas of interest. We don't know. Do we need an interest survey to find out what you want to do? I know I've had a new couple come to me. They're interested in the homelessness issue. So where can I match them? Where can we match them with that? The issue in all of this, one last page and then I'm done. The issue in all of this is that we want to make a permanent difference. Not just a little change here, a little change there. We want to make a difference that's sustainable, that we can continue and look at in the future, probably with other churches, maybe not, maybe just with our church. And we want to involve you. We do. It's not going to be a mandate from us. It will be something that we work on together. Because you know, anything is possible when we as Christians reach out to those in need, those who are disenfranchised. Please actively join us to help those who are homeless, the trafficked, the addicted, and the immigrants. We, the Outreach Board, are looking for you to help us love one another as Christ has loved us. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to have a little more to say about some of this in the sermon at 10:30, so we'll talk some more about that. Finally, Bob Fuchs, who is our treasurer, has volunteered to stand in for Bob Stenhouse, who's the chair of that, to talk a little bit about finance and facilities and what they do.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Bob.
Finance and facilities is exactly what it sounds like. It's responsible for the finances of the church as well as the facilities that we have here right now. I, as treasurer, Mike Chase is our assistant treasurer, and our accountants do a lot of the financial work. Lorraine and now Betty Rupp, who's recently been hired as our administrative assistant, enter a lot of the information to the system. But we are responsible for all the financial activities that are going on here. Canonically, I believe the vestry is still responsible for approving the budget, but we keep track of how the money is being spent. All the money has to be approved before it is spent, so that folks aren't going out there and just willy-nilly spending things. But you know, we're in good shape, and we hopefully continue to be so. One of the things that we are actively working on right now is taking a look at our investments. We want to make sure that we have an investment policy and that we protect the principal while still having the appropriate amount of risk in order to get a return. And that's something that is actively going on within the board. We also are responsible for the facilities. We have George Humphreys recently joined us as the person responsible for buildings and grounds. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's involved in keeping this place up and running for us to all be able to use it. A couple other things that we have going on are that we have the endowments. This is something that we're looking at for the future, where we're going to look for people not just to do their daily giving or weekly giving as they do now, but looking at maintaining this into the future as a legacy for themselves and how we can do some of that. And then lastly, the big thing that we have going on right now is the new parish hall. And that is something that, as was just mentioned, is extremely important to us. And I know as people have been going along and we've been looking for our new rector search, that's something that has come up many times as our need for additional space and additional facilities. And I'm going to take this opportunity to put in a little quick advertisement that we do have our capital campaign going on right now. And we all recognize that this is important, and we really do need everyone, not just the folks here, but everyone that's going to be listening to this, to make a generous contribution so we can actually build this hall. So.
And pledge first. I mean, gotta get the pledge cards in.
Gotta get the pledge cards in. They're coming in slowly at the moment, so we do need that because we do recognize it. And you know, well, all the folks who have said that it is important, now it's your opportunity to show how important it is. So, thank you.
I hope you can see a couple of things. Number one, when I first got here, one of the complaints that was voiced by members of the vestry was that the same people seem to be doing everything. Well, we've expanded the number of people doing things quite significantly. And I want to say thank you to all the board chairs and to the communicators because they are doing your person's work in terms of getting things done and involving other people in the ministries of the congregation. They have spent a lot of time and they have been dealing with the messy time. And they're just great examples of stewardship of time and talent offered on behalf of the body of Christ. So thank you to you all. Are there any questions you have in general? Yes, sir.
One, where do we stand on reorganization of the mission fund?
The mission fund board is meeting this month, I think on the 12th, which is this week. And we should be seeing the first draft of the rewrite of that. We've discussed it. We kind of know what we're doing. I haven't seen the rewrite, so I'll see it on the 12th. Other questions? Okay, I want to just end with a couple of thoughts. Thought one, if you don't like what's going on, tell somebody, not your friend. Tell a board chair, tell a clergy, tell a vestry person, because frequently what you think is happening is not what actually is happening. And even more frequently, the assumption is that if something is happening, it's being done cavalierly and not without a great deal of thought. And we want to be able to say to you about any decision that gets made, that there was a body of people, not just one, that it was discussed over a period of time, and that it was made as perfectly as it could. So, and you're allowed to disagree. We don't expect that everybody's going to agree with everything we do. That's the great thing about being a Christian community. Second thing I want to say is, if you have an idea about something, go to a board chair and say, I got an idea. I will tell you that in the old way of doing things, Jim Busford told me that it took them 4 months to get a refrigerator for through the old vestry system. And this current system, we can name that tune in 1 month. And so it's way more efficient when we take a look at it. And I can tell you stories from lots of congregations where that frustration with the slowness of the way the church worked goes away because more people are involved. If you go to the right person, if you don't know what person to go to, here's how you can find out. 1, ask me. 2, ask TJ. 3, ask Moran. 4, ask any member of the vestry. 5, ask any board chair. 6, go to the website and look and see where all the ministries are listed and think, what makes sense for this thing, where would I bring this? And 7, if you go to that place and they say, we're the wrong one, ask, well, what's the right one? Because we're learning that. And a good example of how we're learning is the thing you heard about the ECW, is that they really kind of have foot in 2 camps. ECW is the women's group and for women's fellowship, and therefore belongs in parish life. ECW is an outreach wing, and therefore belongs in outreach. So they're in 2 places. We just maintained a principle that no group will have more than 1 vote. So they negotiated who's going to get the vote, and then that's where that happens. Are there any other questions? Yes? Yeah.
I just want to reiterate what Deborah Miller said at the beginning, that if we want to communicate about the boards, the people who are here today, who are 25, 30 maybe, there has to be some specific time that the whole congregation hears. Otherwise, you haven't really communicated.
Okay, fair enough. Take it to heart. I believe you. We try very, let me tell you what the balance is in that. The balance in that is that there are a great number of people who are tired with the length of our announcements. It's an interruption in the service, and they feel that that's an interruption in their flow. So we're trying to balance this stuff, And I think Deborah's suggestion makes a lot of sense. Rather than having all 5 board chairs do what they did here, you get you get 2 minutes, and whatever. That makes total sense to me. So that might be a good addition. Also to have it in writing, also to consult. I mean, hopefully, and I've been looking, people actually do go to the website and read some of this stuff. Not many, but some. And so it's the variety of ways you communicate that also guarantees your success for that. Anything else? Well, okay, thank you for your attention. Next week, the deacons are going to do a presentation. I want you to know, and I'll say this again at 10:30, we are the only church in the Episcopal Church that I can find that has 2 deacons who are sisters, which involves both the joy and the pain of family dynamic. Then the following week after that, 2 weeks from today, at 9 o'clock, we'll be talking about the results of the Renewal Work Survey and what we're going to do to implement some of its findings. And that will be by the Faith Formation Board. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.